Outer Orange.
Today, we are looking at BLANGDMIRE. You know what deck I'm talking about. All right, y'all, welcome to another kind of deck breakdown of things to kind of expect to see in the future. This is BLANGDMIRE. This is the Set 4 edition. Basically, if you're going to be competing in BCS anytime soon that has Set 4 legal, just basically specifically Duluth and on, this is a deck you will 100% be seeing. Probably one of the strongest decks going into Set 4. If not the strongest deck going to Set 4. I put this deck very highly up there. Actually, a couple of people have been asking me to talk about this deck, so here I am going to talk about it. I'll give you guys one big important quick thing right now. If you already own BLANGDMIRE, this is like the easiest deck to upgrade between Set 3 to Set 4 or Set 2 to Set 4, because all you really need is this new dragon and you're done. That's how simple it is to upgrade this deck. You don't need to do much. You're basically just moving some stuff around. This is my personal list that I've been testing. Actually, I've been moving some ratios around. Some people run the doll. It's like the one that shoves something in a soul to give power. Some people running the grade 3 that self-finds itself. You can basically like kind of replace some stuff here, like to cut out this if you want to kind of move out some other things. You can kind of lower on this a little bit. This is the order ratios to kind of put that. You can cut back one of these to kind of include those cards. Kind of different ways you can build this deck. I think no matter which way you build it, as long as you get the core mechanic of this being on the board and, you know, having your restanders on the board, you're usually in a pretty good spot. So let's go ahead and talk about this deck real quick. Basically, if you're already playing BLANGDMIRE, you kind of know how this works. You ride up, and as you ride up, you're going to keep soul charging and drawing cards, and basically you're decking your deck as you're doing it, as he does not shove in zeros into soul, but he can shove in PGs and personas and other things that might be more useful that you may have trouble getting back. But then once you're on the grade 3, basically you get power for, you get to, on attack, you get to bind your soul in order to bind your opponent's cards while also binding your cards, and basically you get extra effects for it. And then on top of that, if you have 8 or more bound, you can go into a divine effect, which turns off your opponent's perfect cards for the turn, and also turns off their Vanguard unless they persona ride over it. So they basically just lose a lot of their effects and lose a drive. So that's just basically how this deck works, and it's pretty powerful because right now this deck used to have kind of an issue with like an early game, and also had an issue where like you couldn't really kill fast enough and you would just deck out before you really could kill. I kind of thought this deck was a bit more gimmicky prior to Set 4. The reason being is, like I said, you can't really kill, and then you kind of get stuck. If you don't see your personas, you also get stuck. But funnily enough, one singular card changed all of that. So let's go ahead and take a look at this card real quick, just so you guys understand carrying this entire deck right now. This card is a very simple effect. This is when this unit is placed on rearguard during any phase other than battle phase. You can still charge one, and then Cowboys choose a unit and one other grade 2 or less card with from your soul call to rearguard circle. If your Vanguard does not include BLANGDMIRE at the end of turn, put that card back into your soul. Basically, if you're not on grade 3, whatever you call out, you have to shove that back in. Ideally, you don't want to use the counterblast on early on. You're just gonna be soul charging. And that's basically it. And then the second effect, which is what actually makes this deck really strong, is this. It's very simple. It just says during your turn, this unit gets 10k power for each 4 cards in your face down bind. And you might be thinking like, it's just 20k power, 10k power, like it's just a 30k beater, but that's huge. And under a divine effect, that's huge. Your opponent basically is shut off from perfect guards, and they have to hard block everything, and when you start doing the math, it adds up really fast. But the reason why this is so powerful is because now you can run the set order package that's very, very strong. This is also just very simple cards being added to this deck. I feel like this deck got simpler, which made it more powerful, funnily enough. This effect just says on play Soul Blast, search your deck for this particular card and put it straight into the order zone. So basically you can just instantly deck in a card, just shove it into the order zone, and that you're fine. This deck has a lot of soul charging, so this is not a problem to use. And then this effect just says you choose a back row dude at the beginning of your turn and it gains boost. Or funnily enough, shockingly, I know you're gonna be choosing this card. So basically you have a back row of this huge ass dragon while also having your 4 attack turn, while also telling your opponent your PGs are offline, while also this has a critical on it, and this is also going to be pretty huge. Now, why does that make the difference? It makes the difference because on a persona divine skill turn, everything is basically swinging for huge numbers. Realistically speaking, these back row dudes will be 30k beaters in the back. Or you can also put them in the front row. You can also restand them if you want. If you have like all 4 on the board, you're basically winning the game, unless your opponent checks OT, which is possible. But that's what makes this so powerful, is the fact that you can line them up in the back row. You can put this guy on like the left rear, and then you can put like something else like her or something on the other side, and then basically you can just beat your opponent's skull in. And that's where the power of the deck comes, because now you have these insanely big numbers. They're not swinging for like 13 or 23 anymore. Now they're swinging for 68 and 73, and those are huge number differences. Your Vanguard is always going to be big because of this and this. They just gain power on their own, on top of him just getting progressively scale-wise. He gets bigger and bigger the longer the game goes, because he'll be binding more cards. The more cards you bind, the bigger this guy gets, basically. And so Vanguard's always been the most lethal, but rear guards were always real weak. But now you have strong rear guards and you have a very strong Vanguard. So basically every single turn is an aggressive turn, whereas before you had some mid turns and then you had some good turns. So that's kind of where the difference of the deck came. Everything else kind of stays the same. Realistically, you just want to go through your soul as fast as possible. You want to bind everything, bind your opponent's cards face down, and then you also just want to be able to crit pressure them out of the game, potentially hit OT and close it out. OT will almost always close out. OT is like guaranteed almost to close out with this deck. If you hit OT on Divine Skill, you basically won the game, regardless. It's like a guaranteed win. And the reason why I say that is because your opponent cannot guard through an over trigger. They just can't. They can't PG already, and then if you check OT, they definitely can't. Now they super can't PG. So basically, they usually have to say no guard to Vanguard. You check OT, that's already 3 damage right there. They can check OT back, but even then, they still have to guard through the over trigger power on top of the 60k, whatever K power they have on top of that. With on the one rear guard, you decide to put it on. So it's still very hard, but that's basically their out, is them checking the OT. Them checking the OT is the one way to close out a BLANGDMIRE turn very quickly, but that you could do that with any deck, right? Any deck can just get closed out. I will say the one downside with BLANGDMIRE is usually if they check OT on you, you'll actually go into deck out, and that's usually a problem because you lost your pressure turn, and if you lose your pressure turn, it's really hard to come back from that, especially if you don't have a second persona ride or something along those lines. The dragons can kind of carry you through, but it'll be a little bit harder if they check OT, especially if you're getting really close to a small deck and you decide to divine skill later versus earlier. It can happen, just depends from game to game. You don't always have to divine skill instantly when you have 8 cards in your bind. Sometimes you want to fluctuate when you want to divine skill. Maybe you want to hold on a turn. Maybe you've seen too many, maybe you saw a lot of PGs early on, or you see your opponent has like a small hand, maybe then you can utilize it. You make that decision from game to game. And that's basically, honestly, that's the deck. This deck's that's just how it is. Now, I do want to talk about the Dragon's second effect. Keep in mind, before, we had no way to really revive from Soul to get our cards back. But this card, actually, on top of the fact that it's a super big beater, it also gets your cards back to Soul. So you can utilize this card to kind of put specific cards into Soul, and then you can use this card to get specific cards out of Soul. So basically, in the past, if you can find your card they want to restand, your grade 1 they want to bring out, you're kind of stuck. Not anymore, because this card will basically revive you the cards you need, and this card will get you the right cards into Soul, and then these will just come out gradually as the game goes, which is very, very awesome. It basically makes the deck more consistent, which is something it was lacking before, and that's basically it. So long story short, this deck going into set 4 got more consistency, got stronger columns, and also has a better grade 2 turn, all of which was lacking in the past, and that's what makes this deck just a lot stronger of a deck than what it used to be. TLDR, very good deck. I consider this the second best deck to take to BCS. The first one I think is still Doji. However, I do believe these two decks into each other is not a pretty picture from either side. If Doji goes first, I think Doji wins, and then if BLANGDMIRE goes first, BLANGDMIRE wins. And also the other end, if Doji doesn't kill fast enough and BLANGDMIRE divine skills, Doji will usually, and I'm not saying always, but usually will lose because they just can't guard 68k columns. It's just not possible. Especially for Doji. You can use the PG from your bind zone to block, but keep in mind BLANGDMIRE also binds your stuff face down, so you can only realistically use the PG when they attack with the grade 2 first. If they choose to go down the route, they choose to attack with this first because they'll have to for the restand. This number won't be huge. You can basically pseudo PG this, but keep in mind the effect won't be online either way. So either way, you're locked out of using the PG from bind, so you can't use that either. So you have to rely on your hand. And Doji's hand is usually not the friendliest. It's usually not a very strong hand. It has shield in it. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it usually doesn't have the greatest shield in it. And when you're trying to block this, which will usually be around 53, 58, and then you have to block this, which will usually, this behind one of these is already like just base power. Like if we just do like an 8 bind turn, this is 30, this is 10, so that's 40 already. On Persona, that's 50. And then if they have any other added stuff, like this has an additional 5k, guess what? That's now 55. Like that's 55 that you have to block, like without any PGs, by the way. They have to hard block that. If they check triggers, guess what? Now it's even bigger. Come on. If you have 2 dragons side by side, they're 60 together. That's before any persona, and add number 70 with persona numbers, and then whatever else you can put on top of that. So they do get progressively big. Vanguard's usually huge because he'll have the grade 3. It'll be the grade 3 and the grade 1. This grade 1 in the back will be huge in terms of numbers. Keep in mind, whatever you're restanding also gets an additional 15k power. So that also, say you're restanding this guy. Remember how I said 50 a second ago, and then I said 55. Guess what? Now it's 70. Like again, you see what I'm saying? Like these numbers are very hard to block, so something to kind of keep in the back of your mind, like sort of what you're dealing with. And that's why I think the deck is just very aggressive. It's a lot. I think this deck got a lot simpler to play. Before, you used to run the intercept guy and you had a couple more tools and whatever else. It got more simple. Now, like I said, I mentioned before, you can run the grade 3 dragon that binds, and you can run the doll that lets you get a little bit more power, but you don't have to run those cards. It's kind of just like a maybe. maybe cards. It's kind of up to you. I personally think this is the most streamlined version. It's simple and to the point. No extra weird stuff. It's just you draw and you do your thing and you just kill your opponent, basically. There's no like there's no like weird stuff. I think the simpler you play this deck, the better, because you know you still have to set up, you still have to play with your soul, you still have to do things, you want to do things the right way. You gotta think about stuff, so you wanna keep it simple. But this deck, very strong. I think this is a very strong contender. I think we're gonna be seeing a lot of this deck going into set 4. We don't have the Vispo Benny stuff either. At least I don't think we do. I don't know. We might get it. I'm not too sure. If we don't get it, this will definitely be another deck on people's radar because we don't have the collab to kind of correlate with this on top of everything. So definitely a deck to look out for. And people that are very scared of Doji or don't want to face Doji may want to be on this deck, but it is very dice roll heavy. You really want to go first with this deck. Other than that, guys, hope you guys enjoy that. Vanguard.shop, CodeOrange if you need to goodies, and as always, please like and subscribe if this was informative to you. We have been getting a lot more subscribers. Thank you so much for coming on in. I'm really trying to get to 5K, so please hit that button. There's like 60, literally 66% of you that are not subbed that watch my stuff, so please feel free to join in on that. Other than that, guys, peace out. Das Vidania, and I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye.